As I mentioned, our service today celebrates Pride Month, which commemorates the uprising in June of 1969 in New York City's Stonewall Inn, which lasted 6 days. The uprising was led by transgender women of color to demand an immediate end to violent police raids targeting Stonewall's LGBTQ clientele and patrons. Pride is a celebration of generations of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer folk who have fought bravely to live open and authentic lives. And Pride is a reminder that we still have generational work to do to ensure that everyone enjoys the full promise of equity, dignity, protection, and freedom of who they are. Today's vow renewal, see, I always wind up saying vow renewal ceremony, which follows this abbreviated service. This was Eric Landstrom's idea. And Eric wanted to provide the LGBTQ community, couples, with a moment of romance and recommitment in honor of Pride Month. In Eric's words, we celebrate our LGBTQ community and reaffirm the rights of every person to live free from discrimination and persecution based on who they are and who they love. As part of the outreach team, Eric, Jennifer Leggetti, and Courtney Palmer wanted to extend a welcoming hand to the LGBTQ couples at Palm Beach Pride Fest this year in March. And the invitation to renew marriage or commitment vows was extended to couples at that event. But regardless of their background or sexual orientation, also to celebrate love and unity in the midst of a welcoming and safe community here at our fellowship. Now, we didn't wind up receiving any requests from outside the congregation to participate in the vow renewal ceremony, but I'm happy to say that we do have 3 couples, members of our fellowship, who will renew their vows beginning at 11:30. As an ordained minister, it has been my privilege to officiate many weddings. My very first rite of passage performed was a civil union in Rochester, New York, of a gay couple before same-sex marriage was legal in that state. But then just 1 year later, I was dispatched by the First Unitarian Church of Rochester to the suburban township of Pittsford to celebrate marriage equality because the state had just legalized same-sex marriage on June 24th, 2011. It will always hold dear the memory of standing outside the town hall, holding dozens of long-stemmed roses and my calling cards, and offering to perform marriage ceremonies and celebration as they emerged beaming with their marriage licenses in hand. I performed 5 same-sex weddings that summer, and they were all joyous occasions. Now, since the Stonewall Riots in 1969, same-sex marriage has been an important milestone because a legal marriage provides over 1,000 rights, protections, and benefits to spouses in this country. Unitarian Universalists have understood that marriage equality is the inherent civil right of every person. We've understood that for decades. And as a people of faith, We are called to seek justice, equity, and compassion in our human relations, and therefore have been leaders in allyship and support of marriage equality. Did anybody know, I did not know this until I was doing some research, that last month in May, Julie and Hillary Goodridge, they are Unitarian Universalist lay women in Boston, living in Boston, Massachusetts. They just celebrated their 20th anniversary. Their marriage was a landmark marriage in Massachusetts, in which the Reverend Bill Sinkford, I think he was president of the UUA at the time, performed the ceremony. It was the first same-sex marriage licensed in the state after the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts in February of that year, 2004, reconfirmed its ruling on Goodridge versus the Department of Public Health, requiring the end of the exclusion of same-sex couples from marriage. And then, as we all know, a miracle occurred in 2015. In a remarkable 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that same-sex couples in the United States, no matter where they live, have the same legal right to marry as any other couple. This was a legal and a cultural game-changing moment for us because, as I mentioned, marriage is a bundle of legal rights meant to protect spouses and families, children, that same-sex couples have. Marriage is a civil right, and it's a personal choice. Thus, the case for marriage equality was so compelling that I have to think that even the conservative-leaning SCOTUS couldn't deny the elemental human rights that inure to the legally married couple. It is also a fundamental legal right and a personal choice, as I said, and not something in that case that should be decided by the state. Now, spiritually, ethically, personally, marriage is about the love and commitment of two people who, as consenting adults, have made the choice to spend their lives together. Going back to 2011 in Rochester, New York, one of the few same-sex couples who were married in Monroe County that day, the same day they were able to attain a marriage license, they had been a committed couple for 40 years. Now imagine being denied the right to legally marry the person you love and want to protect, and being denied that for all of those years. What would it feel like to be excluded from that basic human right if you were to seek it? Not everybody wants to get married, but if you wanted to seek it, what would it feel like to be told you can't because of who you love? And what would it feel like if your partner in life were in an acute healthcare situation and their doctor couldn't discuss any aspect of your care or prognosis with you? What if you were even denied access to the emergency room or the intensive care unit? What would it feel like if you could not guarantee your life partner's financial security, if you wanted to, in the event of your death? And while it might seem that the SCOTUS decision makes those exclusions a thing of the past, and for now they do, but we need to remain vigilant to the attempts to erode these equal rights. The state of Florida has only legislation on its books that bans same-sex marriage and civil unions. Although unenforceable, criminal penalties exist on the books for any county clerk who issues marriage licenses to same-sex couples. So, yes, same-sex couples can get a marriage license in Florida. Yes, you can be married. There's an odd crossover between church and state in this institution of marriage, right? You can go to a justice of the peace, or you can go to a judge, or you can go to a religious institution and be married by the duly ordained clerical person, the minister, or the priest, or the imam, or the rabbi. That can happen in Florida. But if you look closely at the legislation, or look closely at how the law reads, it's like Florida giveth and taketh away. It says, you can get a marriage license. Your same-sex marriage will not be recognized in the state of Florida. I don't know how that works. Again, not enforceable with the Supreme Court decision, but we must remain vigilant. So that's why I join with Eric and others in this congregation in saying we still do support marriage equality. And with today's I still do worship service and renewal of vows event, I recognize, and I hope you will, that our collective freedoms are inextricably linked. When one group's dignity and equality are threatened, we all suffer. This month and every month, let us celebrate the pride that powers the movement for LGBTQ rights and commit to doing our part to help realize the promise of Unitarian Universalist values, the idea that every person is worthy of love and dignity, that we strive for justice, equity, and compassion in our human relations, and that we recognize our interdependence, how much we need each other. We cannot live without each other. We're wired for relationship. And in our recognition of our interdependence and how much we need one another, for me, that includes the need that our thriving is mutual, that I don't thrive unless you do. So I still do. Do you? I hope it may be so.